this video, I'm going to show you how to increase the clarity in a design presentation. So what you're seeing on my screen here is a design presentation for a client, and there are some images and some information here, and then of course there's also going to be some placeholders as well. In this presentation, we're going to talk about two components of graphic design, which is the text and images. And good graphic design incorporates text and images effectively. So let's begin by talking about text. So within a presentation, we want to make sure that the text itself is minimal, because a viewer or an audience member looking at this presentation is going to be listening to the presenter, and it's kind of challenging to listen to a presenter speak and then also be reading a bunch of text at the same time. So we want to make sure that where text appears, it is minimal and concise and only includes the most relevant information. We want to make sure that where we do include text, as you can see here, the bullet points complete the sentence, or here, the text right here is written in complete sentence and it has no typos. We also want to make sure that text is aligned and reflects hierarchy. So you can see here that the text on this page, for example, is center aligned for the most important text. And we can tell this is the most important text, or it's the text at the top of the hierarchy of importance because it's the largest. And so you can see here that the most important text on a slide here is presented large and it's center aligned. Whereas if we look at this page down here, less important text or labeled text is smaller and it is left justified or aligned with the lower left-hand corner of the image that it relates to. And so this consistent placement of text, whether it's really important text for the title of the slide or labeled text, it's really important that it's located in the same place, where it's placed consistently, so that a viewer looking at the presentation knows exactly where to look to get the written information that they need. Next, let's look at images. So images is the second part of graphic design. So images are really important because they're conveying information to the viewer that can't be conveyed with words. So images also must be aligned in a grid or centered. And so you can see here, we've got a really important image. We can tell it's important because it's very large. You can see this image has been centered on the page, whereas smaller images here, placeholders on my presentation, are arranged or aligned in a grid formation. And so we want to make sure that whether the images are center aligned or aligned in a grid, that they are aligned. We also want to make sure that page margins and margins between objects are consistent. Now, you can see here, as I place and start to move these, I'm getting some what we call rulers or grid lines that are popping up in PowerPoint. And it's giving me information about how to place this image so that margins on the page or around the images are consistent, and then the margins between the images are consistent. And so we want to make sure that as we're placing images that we pay attention to that consistency. We also want to make sure that images are sized as large as possible on each page while still leaving 10 to 20% negative or white space on most slides for balance and to give each slide some breathing room. So we want to make sure on a slide like this that the images themselves are large, but they're not so large that the image itself looked cramped or crowded. You can see here on a slide like this that the images are placed nice and large to fill up the page, once again leaving some negative space. We also want to make sure that images themselves are high resolution and are not distorted, skewed, or pixelated. So high resolution images means that when you stretch them out, they don't get fuzzy and you can't see those little boxes that are the image pixels. So we want to make sure our images are high resolution. We also want to make sure that when we do stretch them, that we stretch them by grabbing this corner here and dragging, as opposed to stretching this way, which will make them distorted and skewed, or this way, which will make them distorted and skewed. So now that you've seen this presentation, you have a better understanding of how we can increase the clarity in a design presentation by taking care to address the text and the images and their relationship to each other to make sure that the graphics in this presentation are effective.